Dr. Versalati here. In this screencast, I'm going to review how to create rubrics for assessing language performance. These slides are based on a pre-conference institute workshop that I did with Don McCormick at TESOL 2019. In the learning objectives are listed here. We're going to first review the types of assessment. So instructional assessment, the purposes include diagnostic, evidence of progress, feedback to the learner, evaluation of teaching or curriculum. But we're going to focus on how instructional assessment has the purpose of evidence of progress and giving feedback and evaluation of our own teaching. It's important that we first review what a performance-based assessment is. In performance-based assessment, the learner performs the skill that's being evaluated. So performance-based assessment can be maybe on the other end of the continuum with traditional paper and pencil tests where you multiple choice on one side and performance-based assessment on the other, where they might have to write sentences or paragraphs or essays or brochures or give speeches or presentation interviews or complete projects or tasks. So the word rubric is sometimes used in two different ways, inside assessment and generally. The broad definition is that any grading criteria. Does your assessment have a rubric, meaning any grading criteria? But the narrow definition is that a rubric is a scoring guide that outlines the features of work at different levels of performance. So these have also been, this definition has also been described as rating scales or descriptive rubrics or criterion-based assessment. And that's the definition that I will be working with today, that a rubric is a scoring guide that outlines features of work at different levels of performance. It actually describes the levels of performance at. So it typically consists of a hierarchical score scale, either with numbers or just descriptions like A, B, C, or making progress, almost there, something like that, or both at each level. Now, what is the function of a rubric? It is an assessment tool, and it is used to evaluate the quality of open-ended performances, oral or written language performance, and generally we use it for longer language samples. If a student is just going to give us one word or one phrase, maybe we don't need a rubric. So let's think about this. Which assessment would most likely be assessed with a rubric? Students' short answers on a reading comprehension test, students' outline of an essay, students' oral presentation, or students' responses on a vocabulary quiz. Do you have your answer? Okay. So in this question, it asks which assessment would be most likely to be assessed with a rubric, and the student's oral presentation would be most likely. Looking at the distractors of these, the short answers to a reading comprehension test, although the student might be writing answers, the answers can be assessed on whether what was written is correct or incorrect. So it's not the quality of the performance, but just if the student wrote the correct thing. There could be an answer key, so there's not levels of performance necessarily. For the student's outline of an essay, you might use a rubric for that, but you might also just use a point system, where does the student have all the parts there? They get all the points, or is it following the format? Maybe they get 3 points for following the format. And for the last distractor, the student's responses to a vocabulary quiz. Usually there's an answer key with clearly right or wrong answers. So again, we probably wouldn't use a rubric for that. Okay, so now that we've discussed what a rubric is and what its function to evaluate the quality of open-ended performances, where students can answer in a variety of ways and still have a perfectly appropriate answer, both written and oral language performance, and generally they're used for longer language samples. In the next screencast, we will review how to create rubrics.